Welcome to the Pathways to Prosperity podcast, where we explore personal, professional, and financial success stories of top achievers. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Pathways to Prosperity for Entrepreneurs. I'm Terrence Shabillion, and today we're joined by Tristan Jones, president of Naviswiss, a company revolutionizing orthopedic surgery with cutting-edge navigation technology. Tristan is a leading innovation in surgical precision, improving patient outcomes, and shaping the future of medical technology. In this episode, we'll explore his journey, Naviswiss's impact, and the future of healthcare innovation. Let's dive into the inspiring story of Tristan Jones and Naviswiss. Thank you for coming on today, Tristan. How's it going?
Hey, Terrence, nice to be with you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Tristan, can you give us a quick snapshot of your business right now?
Yeah, good question. So, I'm currently working for a small startup company. It's a company called Naviswiss. And as the name might imply, it's a Swiss-based company. And it's focused on, it's in the medical device realm, but it's focused on providing technologies that can assist orthopedic surgeons in the operating room. And the idea is that, rather than putting implants in and having that subjective component for the surgeon, where he kind of thinks that the implant's in the right place and feels that it's in the right place, the idea is to provide some really high precision technology where the surgeon can dial in the really specific position and orientation for those implants, such that they're, within, let's say, a millimeter and a degree of exactly where they need them to be. So at the end of the operation, they can sit back and say, look, those implants are in the absolutely perfect position.
Awesome. When we were talking about this before we came on, and as I had expressed to you, I didn't not having this done, it never crossed my mind that it was subjective, in the process of these being done. So in today's day and age, you love anything that can, make it a lot tighter and a lot better product at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, there is a whole range of manual instruments, traditionally kind of somewhat rudimentary instruments that surgeons have used to kind of guide them. But now we're kind of completely digitizing that process and giving them objective feedback in the operating room so they know exactly where they're putting things, and there's no surprises in the post-operative environment when they're looking at the x-rays to see, how the operation looked under imaging. So it's very, very precise technology to allow the surgeons to achieve that.
Okay. And that kind of leads into my next question, a little bit of that. There's a lot of competition in your space. I was going to ask what is separating you, and what's the differentiator from other, what other people are offering, and maybe what comes easy to you that others find challenging?
Yeah, another good question. So it is a competitive space, and there's many companies that offer a solution, and there's many different types of solutions. But one of the key pieces that makes what we offer at Naviswiss different is that it's what we call open platform. So that means that regardless of the implant choice of the surgeon, this technology is compatible with almost all of the implants that are available on the market. So very, very commonly in our industry, and I spent the last 12 years before I started at Naviswiss working for an implant company. But the implant companies, they create technologies that are exclusively available with the instrumentation and the implants that they offer. So the surgeon can only access that technology if they are willing to utilize all of the implants that are affiliated with that company. So that becomes challenging, particularly in environments now where you've got multiple surgeons operating at one facility, for example. Yet those surgeons, if you put a group of them in the room, let's say there's 5 or 10 surgeons, it's almost impossible, Terrence, to get those surgeons to agree on one implant provider. They all have experience with different implants. They typically have some conflicts with companies that they like to explore and utilize. And it's just, the bottom line is it's very, very difficult to get all of those surgeons to agree on one particular implant company. Inevitably, it's going to be multiple companies. And if those 5 or 10 surgeons are using, let's say, 3 or 4 different implant companies, then the ask would be, if you wanted to use technology, the ask would be, hey, we need to acquire 3 or 4 technologies to satisfy surgeon A, surgeon B, surgeon C, and surgeon D. So that's kind of the beauty of Naviswiss is regardless of what implant you're using, we can provide a solution that enables surgeon A, B, C, and D to execute their total knee replacements, their total hip replacements, their revision total hip replacements very, very accurately with a technology that is compatible across all of the implant vendors that they might use. So that's been a real differentiator for us, is being able to facilitate the desires of some of those facilities to have solutions that meet multiple providers that they might have, and not having to necessarily delve in and try and find capital budget to acquire multiple different technologies to satisfy those different user groups.
Wow.
So that would be the first thing. And then the second major advantage that we have is the affordability of the solution. Very, very commonly in our industry, some of the technologies are really egregiously expensive. So, you're talking about buying a big box solution from one of the larger manufacturers, and just to acquire the technology is well north of $1 million. There's service contracts that are well north of $100,000 a year. There's the implant costs that you're locked in for that typically aren't cheap. So it's very, very expensive to acquire those things. But our technology is kind of built a little bit differently. It's far more affordable from a cost perspective, where orders of magnitude cheaper than some of those bigger competitors. Plus, we're much, much smaller. So a lot of these big devices are big robots that literally like the size of a person in the room. You've got to move them around and shift them around, whereas ours is a small little box and a handheld camera. It's very, very maneuverable, very lightweight. So it's very, very time efficient, very, very space efficient, and very, very cost efficient. So I'd say they're the two main areas, Terence, is the open platform piece, and also the affordability piece have allowed us to have a seat at the table at many of these types of conversations where surgeons are looking for some precision technology.
Awesome. So I got a little bit of your story before we got online, but one of the things that I always like to ask for my listeners, if someone listening wanted to get involved into the medical device field, what do you suggest they do? Or maybe what tip or two would you have to give them to start looking at being able to be involved in this field?
Yeah, it's a great question. There is an eclectic mix of individuals who participate in medical devices. There is a big realm of engineers, as you would expect. We have a lot of biomedical engineers that are heavily involved in the development process, rolling out new products, and so on. We also have a lot of clinical people. People who, like myself, I came from a clinical background. My degree at university was in physical therapy. So we have a lot of clinical people. There are a lot of physical therapists. There are a lot of nurses. There's a lot of doctors, ex-doctors, even retired doctors or clinicians that want to move into the space. But then at the same time, there's also a lot of commercial people, marketing professionals, sales professionals. Inventory and logistics is obviously a huge piece for medical devices. So we have all of that, and then all of the traditional areas as well around finance and human resources and leadership roles, etc. So there's many areas that you can go into in medical devices. So I guess, Terence, it would depend on where they wanted to go.
Okay.
But look, I think the key thing is to be curious and passionate about it. If you're curious and passionate about any role, I think you give yourself the most chance to be successful. So I think that would be my tip. If you really wanted to be successful in medical devices and be successful at it and make a good run at it, then just be curious and be passionate and get out there and try and learn as much as you possibly can, because we live in an industry here that is full of some really, really smart people. And I've been fortunate, in my 2 decades in medical devices, to work with many, many smart people on the orthopedic surgeon side, on the engineering side, and all the people in between. And man, I've learned so much from so many different people. So the more you can just be curious, ask those questions, you'll eventually find your spot. And then if you continue to be passionate about it and try and move the needle with what you're doing and provide better solutions and more efficient solutions and faster ways to do things and smarter ways to do things, then you'll eventually find a way to climb up the ladder and make a continued success of what you're doing in the field.
Awesome. Tristan, what is one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your career?
That's a good question. So, I think that the average now is that people tend to have, I think it's at least 3 careers now, 3 different careers in their lifespan. But as I mentioned, my first career was in the clinical space, working in private practice in physical therapy, and I really enjoyed that space. I did a lot of sports teams. I did a lot of private work. We did some post-surgical rehab. We got a good mix of many different things in the physical therapy world. And, while I really enjoyed that, after a period of about 4 years or so, I felt like I just wanted to do something a little bit different. It can become a little bit routine when you're seeing patients all day, every day. It can be a little bit routine. And I just felt like I wanted to do something else, or that there was going to be something a little bit more to the career from my perspective. So I just started talking with people about affiliated careers. And I was actually fortunate, Terence, that I had a couple of patients who were in the medical device realm, and they were talking to me about it, and they'd made mention to me that there was a fairly significant contribution from the healthcare field, the allied healthcare field, into medical devices, and they thought that I would be a good fit. And we had these conversations over months with these different patients, and I didn't really move on it until I had one patient who worked for a facial repair company come in and say, "Hey, you really need to talk to this guy." And he gave me his business card, and eventually I went to do that. But I think that's the first challenge, is being brave enough and willing enough to make a decision that's not easy, because from a physical therapy perspective, that's a lot of years at university. It's a lot of commitment to your craft, so to speak. And then I spent my first 4 years of working in it every day. And then to be, I guess, brave enough to walk away from that and give up your registration and go do something that's completely different is a challenge. So I'd say that's the first kind of challenge. Be brave enough to admit that if you want to do something different, then you should take it on, and it's not going to be easy. It's not just going to be, taking on a side hustle and hoping it works out. Sometimes you've got to be brave enough to jump in the deep end and do something different. So, I think that's probably the first challenge that I can think of that was in my career. And then a lot of the other challenges just again are based on the individual's willingness to learn, develop, and adapt. I got my first start in medical devices after speaking with those patients. I got my first start in a sales role, and that's kind of a common pathway for people to start, have an initial role in devices, is to start in sales. But then as I started in sales, I started to feel again like what I felt in physical therapy. There's got to be more. I wanted to do something in addition to this. I wanted to learn more new skills. So I actually went back to university and I did my MBA, and that took a number of years because I was working full time as well. So I was studying part time, picked up the MBA. I got interested in the marketing and commercialization sides, and then I progressed through the organization that I was at to lead the marketing group in our Australian office, and then eventually we acquired another company, and I got the opportunity to lead a wholly owned subsidiary of the company. And then we had a task to commercialize this technology in markets all around the world. So suddenly I was on planes every couple of months, flying to Europe and Asia Pacific and the US, which ended up spending a lot of time in the US, learning new skills all the time. Spending time with engineering groups, trying to understand the engineering and the clinical side. All while trying to understand the nuances of orthopedic surgery and what surgeons are really striving for, to optimize the workflow that they do every day. So again, I think a lot of that comes back to just being brave enough to take on new things and not being willing to just sit in your same role every day, put your head down,
Yep.
clock in, clock out. If you really want
Yep.
to do something and make a difference, like, you've got to be brave enough to take on new experiences and to put your hand up and say, hey, I want to do that. And that's what I eventually did after we were in our Australian office running this global enterprise. Then I got the opportunity to relocate to the US, to Tampa, Florida. And that's still where I am today. So I've been here for 7.5 years now. And then a couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to run this small startup, Naviswiss, that I mentioned earlier, and we've got a small team here. It's genuinely a startup enterprise, which comes with all of the positives of a startup and all the challenges of a startup, which I'm sure we can talk about. But again, I think to answer your question, I know that's a long way to answer your question, Terence, but I think it's just being willing to take on challenges, be brave, be willing to be uncomfortable, and be curious and passionate about what you're doing. And if you're really trying to optimize things, understand things, and make them better, then eventually you'll have no choice but to progress in your career, and the people you work with and work for will have no choice but to continue to want to promote you and work with you. So yeah.
Nice. Well, it sounds like things are going well for you and your business. A lot of our guests are looking towards the future and how they can create passive income to enhance or even replace their current active income. What do you do outside of business to set yourself up for your future and hopefully one day your retirement?
Yeah, probably not enough is the short answer, Terence. But look, I'd say for me, I don't profess to be a financial advisor or anything like that. But I mean, for me, I have some real estate investments. I like to play around with some real estate investments. So I still have some of those things in Australia. And since I've moved to the States here, we have some real estate investments here in the States. So I like to do that as well. We have some managed funds where we utilize financial advisors to kind of take care of that side for us. Because as I said, I'm certainly not an expert in that field. So happy to take the advice of others to manage that. And then just trying to be as diligent with your spends as you possibly can. I probably, like many of your listeners, I have a family. I have 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old, and
Oh,
it's never easy when as kids are growing up. There's obviously plenty of expenses to deal with on that side of things, but I think it's always a balance, right? You want to have investments and hopefully at some point generate some passive income, but I think it's a balance, Terence, between the short term and the long term. I don't think you want to be sacrificing all of the short term for the long
yeah.
term, because then you end up not living your life and not enjoying the things that should be important to you. So I think, like anything in life, it's a balance. Make sure you spend the time and the money in the here and now to ensure that you're happy and your family and your friends are happy. But of course, balance that with some of the long term, the eyes to the long term, and making sure that you've got a comfortable pathway where you're going to be secure in your longer term future as well.
Absolutely. Well, Tristan, as we're wrapping up our interview, what exciting plans or initiatives do you have in the works for the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, that's good. So on the work side, we've got a lot for Naviswiss. We're focused on trying to again develop our products such that the offering is more and more enticing to the current environment that we're operating in. And just briefly, that is, in the United States, where I'm based and where our business here is focused. We're seeing this shift now where surgeons are preferring to shift their patients away from being operated in a hospital. And a hospital is typically an environment where sick people go. But
Mm-hmm.
orthopedic patients who need hip and knee replacements typically aren't sick. They're healthy people. They've just got, bad hips and bad knees. So the site of care is shifting away from a hospital environment into more of an ambulatory surgery center environment, a day stay environment where these patients come in, they might come in early in the morning, they'll get their operation done, and then they'll leave 3 hours later and they're home by the afternoon. So very, very different to 10, 15 years ago, where these people used to spend, 5 to 7 days lying in a hospital bed after an
Wow.
operation. So that's all happening. The site of care is shifting. And as the site of share shifts, the drive is now for the environment to be far more cost effective in how they utilize technology and how they get patients in and out of hospital or ambulatory surgery centers and back home again. So we're focused on really trying to provide a solution that is very, very efficient for the surgeon to utilize, such that they can execute the volumes they need to execute. These guys don't want to be in there taking an hour or an hour and a half to do an operation. They want to use something that they can bring in and out of the surgical field, utilize very quickly, get their implants in a perfect position and move on to the next patient, so that they can not only do a great procedure, but also make sure their facility is profitable and they have a viable long-term future. So we're very focused on that from a work perspective. So that's exciting. We work with a lot of surgeons, a lot of very smart surgeons. Some of them we've known for a long period of time, but I think it's great to collaborate with these guys and girls who contribute to things that we can do as an industry. I think the key piece here for industry is to be really, really tightly associated with the clinicians, because we can engineer a solution all we want, but if it's not clinically appropriate for the doctors that use it as the end user, then it's just not going to be successful. So I'm excited about that too. We get to collaborate with a lot of guys that we really enjoy working with. And then on the personal front, as I said, I've got 2 young kids. I'm really, really focused on spending as much time as I can with those guys, because I'm acutely aware, Terence, that these early years with kids, they can evaporate just very, very quickly. So
Yeah.
I got my daughter's very, very keen into dancing and softball and tennis, and my son is a very, very passionate baseball player. So we try and practice as much as we can in the backyard, in the park across the road, down at his formal practice sessions, and I'm very, very excited about all of those things with my kids and my family, my wife. It's good time. So that's what's really exciting me for the foreseeable short term.
Yeah, I always say definitely enjoy them, because they don't stay young for long. Trust me, I understand that one. Well, Tristan, I appreciate you coming on and taking your time today to speak with us. If somebody wanted to reach out and connect with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, I mean, they can get a hold of me through our website. It's naviswiss.com. Or they can reach out to me personally, and I'm happy to share my contact details with you, Terence, that you can post around your
Okay.
podcast.
Awesome. Once again, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. I know running a business is never easy, and sharing with us, and we look forward to seeing how this goes for you in the future.
Great. Hey, thanks, Terence. Really appreciate giving me the opportunity to be on.
Absolutely. Have a blessed one.
Cheers. You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Pathways to Prosperity podcast. Got a success story to share? Visit pathwaystoprosperitypodcast.com/guest and apply today.